Hello, my name is Bhaskar Sirohi. I'm Director for Sales Engineering at Druva. I'm based out of Singapore. My role at Druva is to work with Druva customers, understand their problems with their current data protection solutions, and advise them around what can Druva help them with their data protection needs. So, great question. To answer this, like to uh, tell you more about the problem statement here, right? Typically, what we see with our customers today is that they have a very traditional architecture which has been designed keeping an on-premises environment in mind, right? And what happens when they move to cloud? They try to forklift the same solution to the cloud itself, right? Which ends up being expensive. It ends up being less efficient. It ends up being more time consumed. So poor time to value also adds up. The fourth thing which happens is here is that they miss on the security part of it, because just forklifting the solution to the cloud doesn't mean that your security is better, right? Because your solution, which was designed for on premises, it lacks the security component which is needed in the cloud itself, right? So what Druva does is Druva has looked at these pain points and said that, okay, when we are going to design something in the cloud, we're going to make sure that customers do not have these pain points. We are not forklifting a solution. We want to give a great time to value to the customer, right? We want to have the best security model which can be adopted for the cloud itself, right? So some of these things which are very critical for the customer, we try to solve them by default in our product itself. That's a great question. So if you look at the data protection space itself for last 20, 25 years, what has happened is the data protection in the early ages, which I call generation one, was driven by software, which means that you could buy a software license, buy hardware separately, and then you can go and implement in your data center. Well, what happens in this case is there are multiple challenges, right? Number one challenge is that you're always struggling with capacity, right? The moment you need more capacity to support your business, you're again in the same process of buying hardware, buying software. Also, software tends to be very monolithic over here. It was not designed to be distributed, which means that it is very complex. So you end up creating multiple copies of the same implementation on your multiple locations or in the same location itself, and it is not cloud ready. So you cannot take the same software and put it in cloud and say that I'm ready. That doesn't happen. A generation two happened, which started happening somewhere, you can say 8, 9, 10 years ago, wherein all the customers started saying that, hey, I don't want to be in this business of buying software separately and then buying hardware. They started combining the both, which we call as purpose-built hardware. And they said that this is next gen. You can take it, you can just, it's a turnkey solution. You put into your data center, plug it in, and it starts backing up. It is good in a way. Now it has reduced the amount of work which you were doing. It is very centralized, so you are in a one data center, and it doesn't need multiple copies because you have single control plane which manages everything. But it is still not cloud ready, and it is still having the same problem around capacity, around wastage, around consumption itself. Now, if you look at Druva, the Druva was designed to be globally available. So if you are an organization which has office in Australia and Singapore, in North America, Europe, you can have one single solution which spans out very automatically and without the need of going and buying any hardware, consumption-based models. It makes it very easy for the customer to start and consuming the solution itself. Guess what? It is in cloud, so it supports your entire cloud-based migration or cloud-based innovation which you're doing in your organization, and it supports your cloud-based workloads as well. So if you look at from a key use cases perspective, there are three pillars which we do today. Is one is data availability, which requires making sure that if you lose your data, you should be able to recover that data. Number two is data security. We want to make sure that if a cyber security event happens, we are able to respond to that using the backup copy itself. And third is data governance, which means that that data should be available for your other business use cases. For example, e-discovery, compliance, all those use cases we should be able to support. Now, this happens across your workloads. So if we start, it can happen with your SaaS applications, like if you're using Microsoft 365, or if you're using Salesforce, if you're using Google Workspaces, if you're using Slack, all these applications need data protection, they need security, and they need governance functionalities to be available to them. If you look at from other platform perspective, for example, data centers, right? Now, data centers applications would be like VMware, so data protection for VMware. Now, VMware, you might say it's on premises, but VMware has a big strategy going towards cloud. They have introduced, which is known as VMware on Cloud, which runs on AWS. They also view themselves as a cloud company. They don't view themselves as an on-premises company, right? There are workloads which have already started moving to cloud, for example, Oracle. There are workloads like other databases like SQL, which could be running on-premises or in cloud. Druva can protect all of them. Druva can also protect your cloud workloads. For example, if you are an AWS customer today and you're using either EC2 instances, EBS volumes, or you're using, for example, RDS, or you're using, let's say, S3, we are able to protect this data, and we are able to give you data protection, disaster recovery functionality, governance around it, and build a little bit of trend around your data itself and provide you that intelligence. So these are all the use cases which Druva is able to solve. We have a very interesting roadmap as well, which is aligned towards your cloud-based strategy. So, for example, if you start using a new workload in cloud, we are looking actively to protect those workloads in the cloud and making it more efficient for those cloud workloads itself. So in this security question, there are two parts. Actually, I'm going to walk you through both the parts. Number one part is like how secure Druva is itself, right? Because you as a customer are giving the data to us, and we want to make sure you understand that it is a big responsibility when a data comes to a vendor like us, because we are keeping that data, we are storing the data, right? So number one thing I want to say is that Druva never has access to your data. And this has been vetted multiple times by third-party organization. So what we do is the encryption scheme which we have created here is known as digital envelope encryption, which means that the data encryption key is never in Druva's control, which means that Druva does not have direct access to this particular key. That is completely managed by the customer itself, right? So nobody, whether it's a Druva employee or whether it's a AWS employee, because that's where data goes, is able to access your data. It's always encrypted using AES-256 pair, right? Further to that, if you want to see our credentials, like the third-party credentials itself, we are FedRAMP certified. We also follow SOC Type 2 and Type 3. We are HIPAA compliant. We are FIPS 140 by 2 compliant. So there's a list of certifications and processes which Druva follow, and that is on top of what AWS does. So AWS is also FedRAMP certified, but we are not saying that the AWS FedRAMP certification applies to us. We went ahead and did our own FedRAMP certification. So that's just to define how data is secure when it's stored in Druva itself. Now let's talk about, like, from your perspective, from a customer perspective, how can Druva help you if a cyber security event happens in your organization, right? Number one is we wanted to make sure that the architecture what we are building is it has a data integrity inbuilt itself, which means that none of the backup copies can be modified. So if there is a ransomware attack, it gets limited to your network and it doesn't propagate to the cloud-based copy. That is by default. That's how we have been architected. We're airtight, so nothing can go and execute. A ransomware cannot go and execute in the cloud itself. Second is zero trust architecture. I've spoken about this, but the idea over here is that, just like I gave you an example, wherein none of the Druva employees or AWS employees have that capability to go and access the data. and then build resiliency on top of it, right? So for example, we keep 3 copies of your data. So if one copy goes corrupt, we still have 2 copies of your data, which can be used for recovery purposes itself. Also on top of it, we have built different controls. Like if, let's say, if a rogue employee goes and deletes that data because they have admin level privileges, that works as a soft delete. We do not allow the data to be deleted immediately. We have ways to recover if there's a cyber security event which has happened. Um, now, if now particularly to ransomware, I want to point a couple of things here. Now, we have a functionality which allows you to recover from a ransomware attack itself, right? And it has 5 points to it. Number one point is we give you insights how your data has been accessed, right? So that is access insights. Who is accessing the data? Where are they accessing from? So we capture all those details. We also show you any anomaly within your data itself. So ransomware who goes and encrypts your data is an anomaly. So we can clearly show you that there's a ransomware attack between these dates which has impacted your data, right? You can quarantine. Once you know the anomaly, you can quarantine the data. And then you can integrate with third-party applications like FireEye or your own SIM-based tool to come and do a recovery scan. So if you can give us the SHA-1 of your ransomware, we can go and search, and it can come back and tell you that these are the files which are impacted by ransomware, which got backed up, right? And finally, we offer you a golden snapshot. What it means is that we give you a capability to create a snapshot which does not have a ransomware inside it. So it's a peace of mind when you're recovering your data that there is no ransomware inside that all the files which you're recovering to your server, to your laptop, to your SaaS application, to your cloud applications. You have that peace of mind that this is a guaranteed snapshot which does not have ransomware inside it. It's known as golden snapshot. I'll give you a couple of examples here, and these are all publicly available on our website. So if someone wants to go and check our website, there are references for these customers. I'm going to talk about, for example, a company known as Workforce, and they are using the Druva platform to back up their M365. It used to be called Office 365 earlier, but we are backing up their Office 365 data and endpoint data, which means that earlier they were not having any kind of protection, but introducing this as that they became more compliant and they were able to meet their business needs itself. The second example I would like to give here is a very different application altogether. The company is known as Cats Media Group, and they were actually earlier using a different on-premises product, and they had challenges around data disaster recovery. How do I go and recover my data? And also they had challenge because they had started moving to cloud. So they were moving their applications, re-architecting in the cloud. So they wanted a single solution which can bridge the gap for their on-premises data protection requirements and cloud-based data protection requirements. And we were able to do that. So we help them migrate the workloads in cloud. We help them protect the workloads which are already in cloud. And on top of that, we also help them workloads which are already on premises and which have not moved to cloud, because not all workloads are going to cloud. So simple solution for all three of their requirements. And finally, I would like to talk about a customer, MFX. And this customer had a very big data center consolidation project wherein they wanted to reduce their infrastructure cost, right? They were looking for things like cloud-based DR. They were looking to protect their AWS workloads, their VMware workloads, their SQL, Oracle workloads, which were on premises. And they also wanted someone to help them migrate or DR in case of a disaster recovery. So overall project was driven by lowering the TCO. As I said, they wanted to do a data center consolidation. And because there's very little capacity waste with Druva products, they were able to achieve that in a very short period of time. Absolutely. So we are a cloud company. So number one, best thing with us is you can reach out to us any point of time. So you can go to our website, which is druva.com. Yeah, there are options to go for free trial. So fill up our page for free trial. If you want to do a very quick TCO comparison, we have a TCO calculator available online as well, which can give you some certain estimate how Druva can save you on cost perspective. One thing I would like to say over here is like a lot of people would like to understand like how big Druva is or how scalable Druva is. To give you an example here, we handle about 2 billion plus backups today. We have 4,000 plus enterprise customers, and we are spread across 14 global regions, which are AWS regions, of course, but we are spread and we keep continuously adding more regions, which tells you that you can be an organization anywhere in the world and we can help you with your data protection needs. So do give us a call. You can reach out to us through our website as well.